Welcome to the Filofox podcast with me, Rebecca, your personal organiser and declutter coach. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Filofox podcast. Today we are going to be talking about digital decluttering, and we have an interview with Alice, a colleague, friend that I met quite a few months ago, and she works at Durham University as a department head there. One of her specialities is looking after the files and the policies and the procedures within her department, and I thought it would be a really good opportunity to touch on business this week. So what's been happening? I've actually built a website with some assistance from my fiancé Jason, who did build websites for about 25 years. So we did the layout and took action, went to a cafe and put it all together in an afternoon, which was fantastic. I'd done a little bit of work on it prior with sort of how many pages I wanted and what I wanted to include. So on it now is this podcast, my blog, some information and lots more coming. It is a work in progress. The thing that I was thinking about when I did it was that it was quite a difficult week. Personally, there were a lot of challenges going on within the family and illnesses, and there was other stuff going on. And isn't it strange sometimes that you can be your most proactive and take the most action when you think that you wouldn't? You know, at the times when you think, oh, I'm going to be so distracted by everything that's going on, there's a little bit of determination rises up in me and says, right, that's all going on. That's out of my control. But this is within my control. And that's one of the things that we discuss when we're decluttering, organising, tidying. We look at things that are out of control and we take control of the things that we can. And it's a really important thing to recognise when you're going through that process. Here is Alice Wilson talking about digital decluttering and our work together. Hello, and I've got Alice Wilson here today with me in the Crown Plaza in Newcastle. We're actually next to an event that talks about social media and sharing information effectively. So it's my fiance is speaking there today about video and how you can do it on your phone. So it's a really good place. So you'll have a little bit of background music of we're in the bar. But it's all right, it's after 12 o'clock midday, and Alice works at Durham University as department manager, and we have worked together on a project which helped a GP practice sort out their desktop because they were having a CQC inspection. And I'm sure that many of you have desktops with floating files and things that are out of date. And, you know, we just want to talk about reducing overwhelm within those fields and being able to concentrate on your working rather than you sorting out. But you do have to sort out first. But in the long term, you won't have to sort out as much. And it's a bit like decluttering. If you do something that's quite big at the beginning and you revisit it, you're not ever going to go back to where you were, hopefully. So here we go with Alice. Welcome to the Filofox podcast.
Woohoo! Thank you so much for inviting me on. I've never done a podcast before, so this is all new to me. But I have worked with Rebecca before, and we work so well together, and we have a similar sort of ethos around the principles of trying to develop systems that work for you so that you spend less time managing systems and more time actually doing the work that you need to be doing.
So it's all about taking action rather than reacting, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like it's like thinking about things, about how you work, not necessarily just yourself, but you, your team, how you share information, how you share files, all that kind of thing that helps you almost make your work less overwhelming and make your work feel better, and you actually spend your time doing rather than thinking, oh, I need to file that, I need to do that, and reacting to everything that comes in. Because you can, I mean, now with all the things that we have coming at us from email, from, you know, things online, from comments boxes, from, you know, all these kind of things you have flying at you, to work out a system that works for you. Not necessarily the same for everybody, but there's some basic principles that help you do that without becoming like you be spending time doing the system rather than actually doing the work.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about planning a bit, and I've always said it's a bit like decorating. It's 80% planning and 20% doing, and it's blocking out those times to actually sort things out. And when we went to this practice, we didn't actually know what we were getting into at first, did we?
No, I don't think we did. I think until you get into something and see how people have worked in the past, when people just react to stuff, they get things flying at them and then they just sort of dump things in folders, and you be like where you spend all your time looking for the things again, and you spend all your time trying to find the last thing that you used or what's the latest version of something, and all those kind of things. We didn't know until we got in there how bad it was actually. Not that it was detrimental to this practice, but because they were so overwhelmed and busy, and resources are constrained as they always are. You know, you've got limited resources, you've got to work with what you've got. You kind of just get to a habits. It's habits that you get into of putting stuff in specific things. But if somebody came in and was trying to find that, it's your habit, not anybody else's. So if people aren't aware of it, and if you try to share work and build a team, then you need to have those kind of habits in place before you can effectively work together and also effectively plan and make sure that you aren't just reacting and then everybody knows what everything is. And you know, it's kind of basic stuff that if you put in place, it really helps you in the long run. And it's not complex, and I'm not talking about spending hours doing stuff. You might spend quite a bit of time sorting out the beginning, as you said, but you're putting in place things that over time you have ways of working together and ways of working for yourself that make sense to you, not just to you but to everybody else as well.
Yeah, I think it's also about having that uniform approach that everybody, because like you say, we all have different ways in which we approach. We're all unique, and you know what one works for one and not another. So you've got to find that commonality, haven't you? That everybody, especially when you've got an intranet, which a lot of individuals are accessing.
Yeah, if you've got like shared areas, it's all right for your area to do what you prefer, but you kind of have to agree together some standardised ways of working and principles, and then you can put everything in place to work together like that, use and share information. And now the way that lots of people work remotely, lots of people can access different information in different ways, and people need to know where the latest things are. So unless you put those principles in place, you're scrabbling around trying to find things and you spend half your time searching or using the search mechanisms on intranets and things like that.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things that I really enjoyed, because I love colour, is that we were deconstructing a digital format using post-it notes, weren't we?
It sort of goes against what people are, because if you work a lot in digital, which we all do now, you know, most things are online, and you know, actually using some kind of format and working it through allows you to then play around with it and make it what you need to be. I love the colours and the formats we had for the different post-it notes, because first of all, before you start anything, you have to review what you've got, and I think that's what we used the post-it notes for really when we went into that particular practice. And I would always recommend that before you do anything, you review what your current situation is, and it's worth taking that time up front, because that'll save you time in the long run about, again, searching through stuff. So if you know exactly what you've got, you can then reconstruct it in the way that's useful for everybody.
And another thing about doing in that approach, it enabled other people to come and look at the table and advise us on where they would like things to go, because it's quite difficult doing that on a desktop. But when you got it laid out in a big table and say, well, we feel that this belongs here and this belongs here, but we're not quite sure about this one because we're not in HS, and we don't know what the terminology is sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not specialists. I mean, I've done it in multiple ways. You can do it on a table, you can do it on a whiteboard with grid it out, and use the post-it notes, and what it allows you to do is physically move it round, and other people to come and stand at the board and think, well, actually I think it will be better here, and it gets you buy-in. So if, for example, if you were outside of that context that we were working in, I've done it before in the past with a team, and you all sit there and you construct it together and you get buy-in from everybody about, actually I think it makes more sense to have it like structured like this, and they can play around and move the post-its round, and it really works for that kind of workshop environment if you're doing it in that context. I mean, we obviously did it in a particular sort of couple of days as a consultant consultative work, but if you're doing it in a business context with a workshop of a team, working out how we work together, it actually is part team building and part moving things around, and it gets people thinking. If they can physically see it and move it, it really works better than digitally, I think.
I think also apart from, so as a result, we ended up with a very successful filing system and an index. And I actually saw the client last week and they said it absolutely has worked for them. But another thing they said, which I found really interesting, was that it had shown them things that they needed to improve on. So when we'd done that system, they had looked at other things that had popped up that said, oh, well, we need to update this policy and that policy and the other policy, which they, because it had been lost within that filing system, they hadn't been aware of before.
I think a lot of people just see files as coming in and you just put them in a named folder. It's not that about, it's about how you use documents and your document retention, and also thinking about legal situations like GDPR. You've got clinical constraints in an NHS environment, you've got needs for people to access the latest version of policies, and if you don't have naming conventions and if you don't have an agreement of where things go, you can't see the wood for the trees, and you can't see that you need to update something, or there's a need to disseminate this information and tell people that these policies are the latest policies and this is the link to them. People aren't scrabbling around, and then when people need to access information, they know exactly where it is. And I think that's really, I love the fact that they've come back and said it really made them think about other things to think about, because if you start with that thing, it sort of can cascade down into multiple other things that really, unless you've come across it before, you don't think about it, because just filing is seen as like a sort of, oh, I'll get round to that when I get round to it, but actually it can dictate how you do everything, how you communicate with your team, how you communicate with your employees, how you communicate upwards to boards and managers, and do they have access to the right information, because unless they know where it is, they can't report back and visibly see that you've got the latest version and it's all named and you've got a naming convention and all that kind of thing. I think it's really interesting that it enables that communication. And while we all think of it as digital and stuff, it actually enables verbal and communication remotely with people. And if you've got people who are accessing the information from different stakeholders, it really allows them to get it and get the information quickly and not scrabble around. And it work for everybody, and it cascades in everything you start to do. It's amazing. I know I'm going to extol about it because I'm kind of slightly excited by filing systems. I know that makes me sound like really sad, but when it works, it can really affect everything you do. Like, it can really make you think, oh, we need to do this, and if we're launching something new, we need to think about this up front, about how we communicate, how we disseminate information, what are our legal requirements under data protection, it makes you think all of those things come online because you've got it there.
Absolutely, and I think, like you're saying, indicating there overall, I would say that it actually encourages you to have a strategy, and it also encourages to look forwards in your business. Now, for people who are at home and they've got their desktop, where we've talked about companies, but this actually does apply to you at home. And one of the fun thing it is a bit like decluttering a cupboard. When you declutter your desktop, you'll find things that you forgot you had. And you'll say, oh, well, I didn't realise I got that bit of information, or that photograph, or that file, and why is it over here? Because at the time you maybe were a bit rushed and you've popped it in. So there is an element of finding things that you've forgotten out, and things that actually mean something to you.
Mm-hmm. As there's things like, if you're at home, and things like photographs and stuff, we have all these digitalised things now. We don't print as many off as we used to. I've got photograph albums when I was younger. I'm too old. From when I was younger, and now it's not like that. But unless you go and revisit stuff and know where to find the photographs, you can forget where the photographs are. And it's exactly the same as clearing out a photograph album from your mum's house or whatever, and you go and find a box full of photographs. It's just the digital equivalent of the same. And I really think it makes you clear of it, and you're caring about the things that you do have, so you know what you've got for a start, you know where things are, and other people can find that information. So if you've got a partner or you've got a husband or kids who need to find stuff, they know exactly where to go. And I think desktops can just become overwhelming for people, and then they go, nothing works because it's so slow. It always, I've got all these files and I can't see the wood for the trees. It's just the same as clearing out that rubbish drawer and that we all have. There's always a drawer in every house. We all have one. Even I have one, and I'm quite organised, but it makes my heart slightly sing. I know does that make me sound really sad? I don't know. But it makes my heart sing when you can clearly see where everything is. I've got a photograph file and I've got it, I know exactly where things are. And, yes, it might take you longer to click and drop it into a separate file rather than just dump it on the desktop. But in the long run, it just saves you that energy of looking for stuff. It saves your desktop from slowing down. So digitally it just works better. And I think people don't think of it like that. Like, it is a clutter situation. And I'm guilty of it as anybody else. Sometimes I'll just save it on the desktop, and I end up with the desktop and you're like, oh my God. So I have to sometimes clear it down and go, right, okay, where am I going to put everything, and take the half an hour to do it, because I'm just as guilty as anyone else of rushing around trying. But it's more speed, less speed, more haste, more haste, less speed. I don't know what it is, but that. So you're actually taking the time to do it there and then, and in the long run that saves you the time and it is a sort of upfront investment of a couple of minutes, but it really, over long term, it allows you to have stuff and people to share stuff with people. Like, you want to share those lovely photographs of the kids, or lovely photographs of when I just had a big adventure in January, and I've got those photographs of Iceland, and it's like, what do I do with them now? I've got them in an Icelandic folder, but then it's starting to think about little projects that you might want to do at home, and it really makes you think, I'm going to spend my time putting together a photo book, or it makes you think, how am I going to make the best of what I've got there, particularly with photographs. Don't want to print out and have a collage of one experience or one Christmas, or do you as a family decide that you're going to do an annual photo book of all your pictures for that year, so you've got a physical copy of something, or like a physical file of something. It makes you sort of think about, how do I want to do things for me and my family or my circumstances that work best.
Yeah, I think one of the apps I recently downloaded was called 1 Second a Day, where I actually upload a photograph every single day, and I started it on the in December, so that I got a year up until I get married, so I can look at a photograph, literally a 1 second photograph, and it plays a little film, and I'll put that on my desktop. And the other thing I thought about while you were talking was about having these photographs, which are very, very important, or any documents, but when you've got an excess of photographs, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll take 5 attempts to take a photograph, and I don't always clear those 5 attempts and keep the best one. So when my mobile is downloading its 5,000 photographs onto a desktop, it's about clearing off those test ones, you might say, but also the external drives are fantastic now, and I always think that's a really good way of distributing photographs to the family and saying, here's an external drive of maybe Iceland, here's an external drive of, and then you've got them backed up.
Yeah, I think backups always is really good, but I also I know that my mum, because I don't have kids myself, but my mum wants pictures of the whole family, and she puts them on our digital photograph frame, and that to me, it's about love, and it's about connecting with people. It's not all about digital stuff. It's not all about how do things digitally make my heart sing because it all looks neat and tidy. It's about connecting with people, and if you can't find the stuff that you want to share with people, or know where it is, or you lose it because you lose your phone, or you lose it because your laptop dies, which they can do. In this day and age, I think we have so many things and so much stuff, and so many, it's taking care of the things that really matter, and that mindfulness thing of in the moment looking at that experience and thinking, right, okay, that holiday of a lifetime, or that holiday that we spent in a tent in Ulverston or something, or down in the lakes, that was a disaster because it rained all week, but we had fun, and there's giggles, and there's pictures of you all laughing together. That's what matters. And I think we lose what matters sometimes when we have just an overwhelming number of files or overwhelming amount of stuff that I think people just need to think about. what do I care about? What do I want to do with my things? And really taking the time. And I know that often we don't, everybody has busy lives, we have busy jobs. I'm always trying to get, we're all trying to lose weight. I'm trying to do my exercise in the evening. But taking an hour a week or a couple of hours a week to decide what I'm going to do with the stuff or files or pictures or documents that I need, I need to collate stuff. So if anything ever does happen, it's there. And, I've got my insurance documents, I've got this, I've got the numbers I need. And those kind of things as a personal thing, it just means I feel more secure in knowing that I can share stuff with people, knowing that if anything does happen, I know exactly what I need and where I need to go to get it. All those kind of things just make me feel reassured that, A, I'm an adult and I can adult, and B, I can share and connect with people.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we balance both work and life, and we do hold a lot of our stuff digitally, and I am always saying this in every podcast, I am between digital and paper, and I do like to make up a book sometimes, and that's a really fun way of being able to hand that over to people and physically have something in your hand to open up. But in terms of business as well, what I've done with my desktop is I only have 4 folders actually on my desktop, and they're for personal, business, another business, and a client, and there's 4 folders, but within that there are obviously subfolders, and I think it actually makes me feel better when I look at my desktop, knowing that although there's a lot behind those 4 folders, I know exactly where to go in that 4 main.
Yeah, and I think because sometimes you can get these overwhelming feelings when there's just so much going on, and as I said before, we all have these busy lives, that even one little thing, like if I do end up just having such a busy time, and sometimes I'm so busy that I just dump stuff on my desktop, even if you have like a working folder that you clear off weekly, and you just dump everything in a working folder, whatever works for you to make it easier, but you're not looking at a whole array. If I get my laptop out now, it actually has just the one folder on, which is my working folder. And that's how I do it. Then, weekly I'll just start putting it into the background stuff, and then it's backed up in the background. It's not sitting on a machine, because ultimately, even if you work in a business or your own business, backups matter, and your laptop and your desktop isn't the best place to have stuff, because computers can crash. And I think we rely so much on technology, that's when we would be in panic mode if I lost those stuff I've been working on and spent hours doing, spreadsheets or data collection or anything like that I do that I'd lost. I would start to go into like proper sort of, I'd have a meltdown moment. And I think we all have those times, and I think even if you find something that works for you, whether it be 4 folders, whether it be just a working folder, and then you set aside the time, and that time sometimes is your downtime from the busyness. And sometimes I think that business and in the personal stuff, sorting through pictures and sorting through folders is sometimes a way to have a mindful time, and it really makes you connect with what you've got and think, right, okay. Also then it puts my to-do list back in, because you're like, okay, what do I want to do at home? I want to sort through and get that photo book done, or I need to sort out, actually my renewal's coming up for my car insurance, those kind of stuff. I think it really makes you, as you say, see what you can do next.
Well, I think that's a really good place to end. So thank you, Alice, for coming on to the Filofox podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I hope people don't think I am too sad for making my heart sing when things are so organised. I love a good organised plan. But yeah, I think it's been so interesting just talking through, how to balance that work and life, and we'll all have it. And I think don't feel overwhelmed if you are in that situation. I think just put yourself a plan in place to sort of try and sort it out.
Brilliant.
It's been lovely.
Thank you, Alice. I hope you enjoyed that. Alice was fantastic, wasn't she? I loved that interview. I hope the background music wasn't too loud for you. We were actually in a big hotel in Newcastle when we recorded that, but it was a great atmosphere, and I loved that interview. If you'd like to contact me and have any questions regarding decluttering, organisation, tidying, please get in touch with me at my new email address. Yes, that new website, filofox.co.uk, has produced a new email address, which is info@fileafox.co.uk, a nice shorter version email than the last one I gave you. So next time we're going to be talking about overwhelm, those little telltale signs that things aren't quite right, and in some cases you're at a critical point and feel that you need some help. And following that, there will be an interview with Becky Owen, who you may remember has produced the music for this podcast, and she'll be talking about her journey working with me and what made her call me in, how we've gone through that process, and what she's doing alone now as well as with me, which is really inspiring and great to hear. Again, any details that I've given you will be in the show notes, including all of my social media links. For now, goodbye, have a great week, and I'll see you again soon.